Have you ever wondered why, no matter how much you want a real connection, you keep ending up single? And why it feels like something is quietly pulling you away from the wrong people? What if this isn't bad luck, heartbreak, or timing? What if it's divine intention? Deep down, you've always felt different, more aware, more sensitive to the spiritual shifts around you. Maybe you've been protected, separated, and preserved because your purpose is bigger than you realize. And if God has kept you single all this time, not to punish you, but to prepare you, then today you're about to understand the real reason behind your waiting. Because discovering why you've been set apart isn't just about your relationship status. It's about unlocking the truth of who you are and the calling that has been guiding your path in silence. While others jump into relationships that drain them, you've always felt this invisible barrier. Something that stops you from settling for less, something that whispers that your heart wasn't made for ordinary connections. And that feeling isn't random. It's a signature, a sign, a mark of someone chosen. But chosen for what? Protected for whom? And why does your solitude feel more like a spiritual assignment than a coincidence? In this video, those answers begin to unfold. If you've ever questioned whether your loneliness is actually divine preparation, if you've ever sensed that your soul carries something rare, stay with me until the end. Because once you understand the reason behind your season of singleness, you'll never look at your life, or your purpose, the same way again. If you believe God has been shaping your journey and you feel connected to messages like this, take a moment to subscribe. Join this space where we grow together in faith, purpose, and spiritual clarity. You're not meant to walk this path alone. And here, you'll find a community that understands exactly what you're experiencing. Let's walk this calling side by side. There are moments in your life when the silence around you feels heavier than any answer you ever prayed for, and as you listen now, that same silence begins to echo inside you again. A silence that doesn't feel empty, but intentional. You've walked through seasons where everyone around you seemed to find love easily while you remained on the sidelines, wondering why the doors that opened for others always stayed shut for you. Yet, as this thought loops in your mind, something deeper begins to stir. Maybe you were never being left behind. Maybe you were being set apart. Set apart because the relationship aligned with your purpose requires more than desire. It requires spiritual maturity, inner clarity, and divine timing. And as you stay here with me, your heart reluctantly admits a truth it always sensed. You were never meant to fit into ordinary connections, because your destiny was never ordinary. Every time you tried to force a connection that looked promising on the surface, something inside you pulled away, an internal resistance you couldn't explain, yet couldn't ignore. You felt it as a quiet discomfort, an invisible barrier that kept you from settling into relationships that everyone else saw as good enough. That emotional loop still returns now as you listen, reminding you of the moments when your spirit reacted before your mind understood. And perhaps, deep down, you always sensed that these disruptions were not coincidences. They were divine interventions. They were gentle redirections keeping you from partnering your heart with someone who couldn't carry the weight of your calling. Because when someone is chosen, alignment matters more than company, and God will close any door that threatens your spiritual identity before it ever becomes a wound you'd spend years trying to heal. Think about the people who entered your life only to exit just as quickly, leaving you confused, questioning yourself, and wondering what went wrong. But as you revisit those memories through this emotional loop, something becomes clear. Each departure protected you from connections that were never equipped to stand beside your destiny. The truth is, chosen individuals rarely find compatibility in shallow waters. Your depth intimidates the unprepared, your intuition unsettles the dishonest, and your purpose repels those who walk without direction. So while you once saw these endings as rejection, with time you begin to see them as spiritual rescue missions, divine safeguards keeping your heart intact for a partnership worthy of your calling. And right now, listening to this, your spirit recognizes that none of those losses were losses at all. They were preservation. There is a specific kind of purpose that cannot be rushed, a purpose that requires solitude to grow, and whether you realized it or not, your season of singleness has been shaping that very purpose inside you. While others sought validation through relationships, You were called to seek clarity through stillness. While others escaped loneliness by filling their lives with distractions, you were asked to remain present with your emotions long enough to understand them. And though this process felt painful at times, the loop keeps repeating. Your solitude was not isolation, it was refinement. It was the spiritual conditioning required to prepare you for a partnership that does not weaken you, but multiplies you. And as you hear this truth, something inside you knows it's real, because nothing in your journey has been random. Your emotional sensitivity, the one you often wished you could turn off, isn't a flaw, it's a tool crafted for someone chosen. That intuitive pull you feel around certain people, the immediate knowing when a place or person is wrong for you, the heaviness in your chest when your spirit senses disalignment, these are signs of spiritual discernment, not weakness. And as that truth loops through your mind, you begin to see why your journey could never mirror the paths of those around you. You're not designed for superficial connections. You're designed for spiritually aligned partnership. And alignment requires separation. It requires space. It requires waiting until your spirit is strong enough to recognize the person who was crafted to walk beside you, not ahead of you, not behind you, but with you. Consider how many times you felt an instant shift when someone's energy didn't match yours, even if everything looked perfect on the outside. That internal alarm wasn't fear, it was spiritual protection. The loop returns again as you remember those moments. The relationships that didn't progress, the conversations that suddenly fell flat, the connections that dissolved without explanation. And now you begin to understand. When someone carries a calling, their spirit refuses to attach to people who drain their mission. Your solitude didn't happen because you were unworthy. It happened because God refuses to let you waste your purpose on someone who cannot carry it with you. And even now, as the truth settles, you can feel that familiar inner confirmation, the quiet knowing that your path has been guarded for a reason. There is someone being prepared to walk beside you, someone whose purpose aligns with yours, someone whose spirit complements your own. And just like you, they are going through their own season of refinement, their own shaping, their own spiritual growth. While you wonder why your wait has been so long, God has been crafting a connection so deeply aligned that rushing it would only damage what is meant to flourish. This thought loops again, pulling at your heart, because deep down you always sensed that your future partner wouldn't be ordinary. They would be someone who doesn't just understand your purpose but amplifies it. And when that moment arrives, you will finally understand why every delay was divine. Your path hasn't been linear, and your experiences haven't been light, but every moment has been necessary. As you trace your steps, the emotional loop keeps circling back to a single truth. Nothing about your journey has been accidental. Every unanswered prayer, every closed door, every season of loneliness has been part of a spiritual strategy designed to protect your destiny. And as the pieces come together in your mind, something inside you shifts. You begin to see that your singleness was never a punishment. It was preparation for a partnership that requires a depth few people ever reach. And you have reached it because you were chosen to carry more than just love. You were chosen to carry purpose. You are not behind. You are not delayed. You are aligned. And as this realization loops again and again in your spirit, you begin to feel the weight of years lifting off your chest. You start to understand that the timing you once questioned is the same timing that is protecting you now. Because when God prepares someone for greatness, He prepares their heart first. He strengthens their spirit. He sharpens their intuition. And He teaches them to value connection not for comfort, but for destiny. Everything you have learned in solitude is becoming the foundation for a relationship that will not break under pressure. As you stay with me through this journey, one truth becomes clearer with every breath. You are single because you are chosen. Chosen for purpose, chosen for alignment, chosen for a love that reflects divine intention. And even though you may not see it yet, your season of waiting is nearing its completion. The alignment is happening. The preparation is almost finished. And when God finally brings the person meant for you into your life, you will look back at this entire journey and realize that nothing was withheld from you. Everything was being prepared for you. because chosen hearts are never abandoned. They are perfected for the promise. There comes a moment in every chosen person's journey when the weight of unanswered questions becomes almost unbearable, yet something inside them refuses to give up. As you listen now, that same quiet resilience begins to rise in you again, the same resilience that carried you through nights when you felt forgotten, unseen, and overlooked. But as this emotion loops through your chest, you begin to notice a pattern. Even at your lowest, something always kept you standing. Something always whispered that your story wasn't over. And now, as you breathe in this truth, you finally begin to understand that your prolonged season of singleness wasn't a pause. It was protection. It was God keeping you hidden until the right moment, the right alignment, the right partnership entered your timeline. And deep down, you feel it, the sense that your life is on the edge of a divine shift that will change everything. Every time you questioned your worth because a relationship didn't work out, the spiritual world was shifting in your favor without you even realizing it. And now, as this thought repeats in your heart like a soft, rhythmic pulse, something inside you begins to awaken. You remember the moments when you nearly settled for someone who couldn't understand you, moments when loneliness tried to convince you that you were asking for too much, moments when you almost lowered your standards just to fill the silence. But as you revisit those memories through this repeating emotional loop, clarity finally hits you. It wasn't that you were asking for too much, it was that you were chosen for more. And chosen people don't settle, because settling suffocates destiny. Your spirit rejected what your mind considered acceptable because your future requires alignment, not company. And that inner resistance was proof that God's hand has always been on your story. You have to understand something profound. Chosen individuals carry an atmosphere around them that cannot mix with just anyone. Your presence alone shifts environments, exposes intentions, and reveals truths people try to hide. And as this awareness loops in your mind, you begin to see why relationships never felt easy for you. You weren't designed to walk with the unprepared. You weren't designed to attach yourself to souls who resist growth. Your spirit seeks depth, honesty, direction, and purpose, and anything less feels like spiritual starvation. That's why certain relationships drained you so quickly. That's why you often felt older in the spirit than the people you dated. And that's why God stepped in and closed doors you didn't have the strength to close yourself. Not because you were weak, but because your calling demanded protection until the right person arrived, someone who matches your depth instead of drowning in it. Think about how many times you felt spiritually exhausted by people who never understood your emotional language. They wanted affection, but not connection. They wanted comfort, but not commitment. They wanted your energy, but not your purpose. And each time, your soul felt that familiar ache, the ache of being misunderstood, unvalued, and unseen. But now, as you listen, the loop becomes clearer. Those experiences weren't failures, they were filters. They filtered out everything that couldn't walk with you into your next season. They strengthened your ability to recognize what is real, pure, and aligned. And they taught you to protect your heart not with fear, but with wisdom. Your past relationships were classrooms, not punishments. And now, standing in the present moment, you begin to see that every lesson was preparing you for a partnership built on depth, purpose, and divine intention. Your journey required something most people never experience: emotional endurance. You've had to carry seasons of silence, seasons of doubt, seasons of longing, and seasons of spiritual reshaping. And through it all, you managed to remain open-hearted, a trait that only chosen individuals possess. As this realization loops through your spirit, you feel something heavy lifting from your mind. Because now you see that everything you thought disqualified you actually shaped you. Your sensitivity became discernment. Your wounds became wisdom. Your waiting became strength. And even now, as you reflect on your journey, you feel a quiet reassurance rising inside you. You were not overlooked, you were being prepared. Prepared to love deeply without losing yourself. Prepared to partner with someone whose spirit aligns with yours. Prepared to build something that doesn't just satisfy your heart, but elevates your calling. There are people who date for comfort, and then there are people who date for purpose. You, without even realizing it, have always fallen into the second category. Your heart never allowed you to stay where your spirit felt unsafe. That's why you could sense dishonesty before it surfaced. That's why you felt the emotional distance others tried to hide. And that's why you walked away from relationships that seemed perfect on paper but felt spiritually empty. This loop keeps replaying in your mind because it carries a truth you can no longer deny. You were chosen to love on a higher frequency. And love on a higher frequency requires alignment on a higher frequency. Anything else becomes suffocating. Anything else becomes distracting. Anything else becomes damaging. So God protected you from those connections by creating distance, even when you didn't want it. Because chosen hearts are not allowed to settle for temporary comfort. As you continue listening, something shifts inside you. A deeper awareness, a clearer understanding, a stronger sense of identity. You begin to realize that your singleness has been one of the greatest spiritual investments of your life. While you thought you were waiting for love, God was training you for destiny. And destiny-level partnerships cannot be rushed. They require preparation, healing, alignment, and clarity. And all the times you felt lonely, forgotten, or confused were actually strategic moments of spiritual refinement. You were being shaped into someone capable of loving without losing purpose, someone capable of leading without dominating, someone capable of partnering without shrinking. And as this truth loops again and again, you feel a quiet strength rising in you, the kind of strength that comes from finally understanding your worth. There is a version of you that God has been preparing for the person He is also preparing for you. And right now, you are getting closer to that moment of alignment than you've ever been before. That's why your spirit feels restless. That's why your intuition feels sharper. That's why you feel change approaching even if nothing external has shifted yet. The loop inside you keeps repeating the same message. Something is coming. Something aligned. Something purposeful. Something long awaited. And this time, when love enters your life, it will not come to take from you. It will come to walk with you. It will come to multiply your purpose. It will come to match your depth. And you will finally understand why every delay, every heartbreak, and every season of solitude had to happen exactly the way it did. Your heart is being prepared for a love that doesn't drain you, confuse you, or break you, but a love that strengthens you, supports you, and elevates you. And as this truth sinks in, the emotional loop returns once more, reminding you of every moment you thought you weren't enough, every moment you questioned your worth, every moment you believed you were hard to love. But now, standing in this moment of clarity, you begin to see that those beliefs were never yours. They were the result of connections that were never aligned with your spirit. The right person will not fear your depth. They will understand it. They will not be intimidated by your calling. They will honor it. They will not silence your intuition. They will trust it. Because chosen hearts recognize chosen hearts. And now, as you reach this point in your journey, one truth becomes undeniable. You were kept single because your purpose is too important for God to risk pairing you with someone who cannot walk beside it. Your season of solitude is almost complete, and the next chapter of your life is preparing to unfold. Stay with this truth. Let it repeat in your spirit. Let it reshape how you see your past, your present, and your future. Because when the right person enters your life, everything will make sense at once. The weight, the tears, the longing, the silence. And you will finally understand that you were never waiting alone. You were waiting with purpose. There is a powerful shift happening in your life right now, even if you can't see it yet. You can feel it, that subtle tension between where you've been and where you're going. It's the same tension that has followed you through every season of waiting, every moment of doubt, every quiet night when you wondered why love seemed so distant. But as this emotional loop repeats inside you, something becomes clearer. You were not waiting for love. Love was being elevated to match you. God was raising the standard of the person who would one day walk beside your calling. And because your calling carries weight, your partner must carry strength. Your heart wasn't being withheld, it was being protected. Protected from people who weren't ready. Protected from relationships that would drain your purpose. Protected until the right alignment was possible. Every time you questioned whether something was wrong with you, heaven was whispering that everything was right about you. Your depth, your intuition, your emotional intelligence. These traits were never obstacles. They were indicators of your spiritual identity. But because most people never developed these qualities, they couldn't understand you. They couldn't meet you where you were. And every time you tried to shrink yourself to make a relationship work, your spirit pushed back. That inner resistance, that emotional discomfort, that sudden loss of peace, they were signals. Warnings. Indicators that you were walking outside your spiritual assignment. As this realization repeats through your mind, you finally begin to understand why your relationships never felt balanced. You were never meant to match with the average, only with the aligned. You've always carried a spiritual sensitivity that made you feel different from others, and for years, you mistook that difference for isolation. But now, as this loop returns once again, you start to see the truth. Your sensitivity has always been protection disguised as loneliness. You feel energies quickly. You discern intentions naturally. You see beneath the surface without trying. And because of this, God could never allow you to connect deeply with people who hid their true selves, people who lived without purpose, people who weren't ready to be seen at the level you see. Your spirit recognizes what your eyes cannot yet confirm, and that gift, the gift of awareness, has saved you from heartbreaks you never even realized were coming. Your calling requires a partner who doesn't just love you emotionally, but understands you spiritually. Someone who doesn't get intimidated by your depth, but matches it. Someone who doesn't silence your intuition, but trusts it. Someone who doesn't compete with your purpose, but aligns with it. This kind of person isn't found through casual dating or fleeting connections. They are found through alignment, timing, and divine orchestration. And that's why your journey has taken longer, because God is preparing a partnership that doesn't just fill your heart, but elevates your destiny. As this idea loops through your mind, you begin to realize that your standards weren't too high, they were divinely assigned. There were seasons when you prayed for love, but instead, God gave you space. Space to heal. Space to grow. Space to understand yourself outside of the expectations of others. And even though it felt lonely, that loneliness became the soil where your purpose rooted itself. You learned to rely on your spirit instead of external validation. You learned to listen to God instead of the noise of the world. You learned to recognize your worth without needing someone else to confirm it. And now, as this cycle of realization repeats, you begin to appreciate the wisdom in your waiting. You weren't being punished, you were being planted. Your heart has always held a rare depth, a depth that many people were attracted to but few were prepared to truly handle. Some admired your compassion but couldn't match your emotional honesty. Others enjoyed your loyalty but lacked the maturity to offer the same. And each time, your heart felt the disconnect long before your mind understood it. Now, as this emotional loop plays again, you see why those relationships were temporary. They weren't failures, they were fragments. Fragments meant to teach you what your spirit needs, not what your loneliness wants. Fragments that shaped your clarity. Fragments that sharpened your discernment. Fragments that prepared you to recognize the person who will one day feel like home. There is a spiritual heaviness on chosen individuals, not a burden that weakens them, but a weight that elevates them. This weight has followed you your entire life, guiding your decisions, interrupting your plans, and redirecting your steps. And even when you didn't understand it, your spirit obeyed it. That heaviness is purpose. That heaviness is calling. That heaviness is the reason you couldn't force relationships that weren't aligned with your destiny. As this realization loops again, something inside you softens, because now you know that your sensitivity, your intuition, your emotional depth, your need for alignment, All of it was guiding you, not limiting you. The next relationship in your life will not be like the ones you have known before. It will not start with confusion, mixed signals, or emotional imbalance. It will feel steady, grounded, peaceful, a kind of connection that your spirit will recognize instantly. And the reason you will recognize it is because your past experiences trained you to. Every heartbreak recalibrated your discernment. Every disappointment sharpened your clarity. Every season of singleness taught you what real alignment feels like. And as this loop repeats through your heart, you begin to sense something powerful. You are ready for what's coming, and what's coming is ready for you. There is a divine rhythm working behind the scenes of your life, aligning your steps with someone who has been on their own journey of preparation. Someone who understands pain, purpose, calling, growth, and destiny the same way you do. And when your paths finally collide, the connection will make sense in a way nothing else ever has. It won't require explanations. It won't require forcing. It won't require shrinking yourself to fit. It will feel like alignment. It will feel like destiny. And this truth, looping now inside your spirit, brings a quiet comfort, because you realize that nothing was taken from you. Everything was being saved for its appointed time. And so, as you stand in this moment, listening to these words, one reality becomes clearer than ever. You were kept single because your purpose demanded protection. Your heart was preserved because your calling carries weight. Your journey was extended because your future requires strength. And now, you are stepping into a season where everything you've endured begins to make sense. Stay present. Stay open. Stay aligned. Because the same God who protected your heart is preparing to fulfill the promise attached to it. When you finally stop chasing what was never meant to hold your heart, something powerful begins to happen inside you, a quiet clarity that feels almost supernatural. It's as if God starts rearranging your inner world, removing the noise and resetting your spirit for what truly aligns with your destiny. In this solitude, you begin to see that every disappointment was not rejection, but redirection. Every closed door was not punishment, but protection. And as this realization sinks deeper, a new awareness rises. The loneliness you feared was actually the training ground for your authority. Because chosen souls are not prepared in crowds, they are forged in silence. And right now, that silence is starting to make sense in a way it never did before. There were relationships you almost committed to simply because you were tired of waiting, tired of being the strong one, tired of pretending you didn't care. But every time, something inside you whispered, "This is not it." That whisper was not doubt, it was divine interruption. And now, looking back, you can see how perfectly God blocked what would have drained your spirit, dimmed your purpose, or delayed the calling over your life. Even when you didn't understand it, heaven was intervening on your behalf. That is the signature of someone chosen. God interrupts what you think you want to give you what you truly need. And as you hear this now, that truth is unfolding right in front of you. The weight you carry is not the weight of loneliness, it is the weight of preparation. God has kept you single because your assignment requires clarity, strength, and a heart that cannot be easily swayed or manipulated. He is building in you the kind of discernment that can see beyond charm, beyond appearance, beyond empty promises. You are being shaped into someone who recognizes real alignment when it arrives. And this shaping is not ordinary. It is precise, intentional, supernatural. Because those who carry a divine calling cannot be connected to just anyone. Your solitude has been heaven's way of sharpening your ability to choose with wisdom rather than emotion. Most people choose relationships out of fear. Fear of being alone, fear of missing their chance, fear of being the last one left. But you've been chosen to build a relationship from purpose, not panic. That means God will not allow you to settle, even when you try. The moment you move towards something that is beneath your calling, everything inside you feels heavy, uneasy, out of place. That is not anxiety. That is divine resistance. You are being held back not because you lack value, but because you carry too much destiny inside you to attach yourself to anything temporary. Every time you questioned your worth because a relationship ended, heaven was actually celebrating. Celebrating because you escaped what would have taken you away from who you are meant to become. You are not just being protected for love, you are being protected for legacy. The partner God is preparing for you is not someone who simply fills a void. They must be someone capable of walking with you into your purpose. Not everyone can handle the weight of a chosen one, and that is why God has been so selective with the connections allowed into your life. This season is not punishment, it is refinement. The truth is, your spirit has always been ahead of your relationships. You felt things others didn't feel. You noticed red flags others easily ignored. You sensed spiritual mismatches long before the relationship could collapse. That sensitivity is not a weakness, it is evidence of your calling. You were never meant to bond casually, because your soul was never designed for shallow connections. You were created for a partnership that magnifies purpose, expands vision, and honors God. And deep down, you can feel that this truth is awakening something inside you. Something ancient, something divine. God's timing has frustrated you, but it has also saved you. Because if He had given you what you wanted when you wanted it, you would be tied to someone who could not support the magnitude of your calling. The delay is not random, it is strategic. Heaven is aligning someone who matches your spiritual frequency, your emotional depth, and your divine assignment. Someone who doesn't just love you, but recognizes the anointing you carry. And as this revelation unfolds, your heart begins to understand that the wait was never wasted. It was preparation for something rare. As you journey through this message, you start to see the patterns you once ignored, the friendships that faded suddenly, the relationships that fell apart overnight, the people who were removed without explanation. It wasn't chaos. It was divine pruning. God was creating space for what carries longevity, not inconsistency. For someone chosen, pruning always comes before elevation. And now, the pieces are coming together. Your solitude has been the doorway to your spiritual maturity, your emotional strength, and your destiny alignment. This entire time, God has been preparing you to recognize the kind of love that is built on purpose, not convenience. The kind of love that is spiritually aligned, emotionally grounded, and divinely assigned. A partnership where both souls sharpen each other, strengthen each other, and walk in destiny together. You were kept single because your future relationship is not just romantic, it is transformational. And anything that's significant requires heaven-level preparation. The calling on your life demanded it. So now, as we reach the final moments of this journey, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. You were never waiting for love. Love was waiting for you to become ready. Ready for purpose. Ready for alignment. Ready for the kind of connection that glorifies God and unlocks the next chapter of your destiny. Hold this truth close. God did not withhold anything from you. He preserved you for something extraordinary. And when it arrives, everything you endured will finally make sense. If this message awakens something deep inside you, don't leave without taking the next step. Hit subscribe so you never miss a word that God is releasing over your life. And if you felt this truth confirming what your spirit has sensed for years, drop a "I am chosen" in the comments. Not for me, but as a declaration over your destiny. Share this video with someone who needs to remember that God's timing is never late, it's strategic. Stay here with me, because your journey doesn't end today, it begins now.